Crazy execution, crazy data, almost 10x valuation increase.
It was actually the biggest jump on Nasdaq ever. And then everybody wanted to rush. And the Euronext quote was blocked in 45 minutes because there was too much demand on the stock. If the readout had not been positive, we would have been in really trouble. What we have said about France in general, the technology tended to be a good technology, but the issue is the scale-up. There was no example of success. This year, we got 3 in a row, which is obviously a wonderful position. In small biotech, you need to find really good people around you. So ultimately, the success of Abivax, not me. I am only the chief of the orchestra. I don't play the music. The people who play the music are the people around me.
Bienvenue to a new episode. I'm your host Philip, and on this show, I'm interviewing the best Europeans in biotech to help you grow. France has now an $8 billion biotech, which is the first time ever. The company is Abivax. So I caught up with Marc while we were both in Vienna, and he was actually in the show 2 years ago when they joined Abivax as CEO. We talked about the behind the scenes of the phase 3 and how he managed the stock craze, which was an increase of over 500 or 600%. And it's actually the biggest stock increase ever in a biotech on announcing clinical results. We also talked about transitioning from a pharma CEO, your CEO of Ipsen, to a biotech CEO without making too many mistakes, and why loving what you do matters so much. So here's my conversation with Marc, and please hit the like and follow button if you're enjoying it. Welcome back to the show, Marc.
Thanks, Philippe, for welcoming me here. So
it's cool. I checked. We talked almost 2 years ago when you just joined, and amazing. I mean, crazy execution, crazy data, almost 10x valuation increase. I think you must feel you're smiling, but you must feel very good. Can you talk a bit more?
Yeah, of course, it's it's a good moment, but this was after even a few months ago, moments still of tension. This company was not funded until November of this year.
Okay.
So if the readout had not been positive, we would have been in really trouble. So I think several months ago, I was not smiling a lot.
Crossing the fingers.
Exactly.
I thought you were financed a bit further. Okay, so it was really make it or break it.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. But you made it. Honestly, when I saw the results, I was like, wow, amazing. And then I checked the stock price. I was like, okay, wow. I think at least in the last 10 years, I've never seen a data readout with such a jump. I think was overnight 500+%.
Yeah, 600%. Yeah. It was actually the biggest jump on Nasdaq ever. So.
Ever, yeah. Okay.
Yes. So it was exceptional. But I think part of it was linked to the fact that there were before the readout some questions on the mechanism of action and whether this drug would be that efficacious. And what we demonstrated in this study is that not only actually the drug was efficacious, but it was more efficacious than in the phase 2b, which is very rare.
Yeah.
And then the safety profile was also, very, very good. The tolerability of the drug was good. So I think the combination took investors by surprise on the positive note, and then everybody wanted to rush. And we had actually the French, the Euronext, quote was blocked in 45 minutes because there was too much demand on the stock. The computer was not able to, and then it breaks. And then the Nasdaq didn't last that long, but also 15 minutes was no quotation because there was too much demand. Yeah.
How did you personally manage these moments? Must be a bit crazy. Your phone must be ringing like crazy.
Well, it's organized, right? Because we have, we were presenting the data, that we had calls with investors, but it's true that day, usually you have investor calls that last in general, 30 minutes. But here they were every 15 minutes. We had to rotate because they all wanted to ask us a few questions on things. And again, that was the first day. we did the raise only basically the next day.
Yeah.
So all this conversation, we could not speak about fundraising. We were talking just about the data.
It's crazy. Okay. And then because you raised, what was it, 750
million.
$50 million?
Yeah.
I'm curious, how was it like? How is the process? How was the process? Because I'm always curious with the thing when you have a readout and then you close right away. Like you already start the discussion, I guess, beforehand, and then you wait for the data, like the readout, and then you have an agreement. Or how did it actually go?
Well, in general, what you do is 2 months before the readout, you speak with investors, you line them up to say, the readout is coming at some point.
Once we hit this endpoint.
Yeah, you try to describe your expectation, which again, the study was actually higher than our expectation. Yeah. And then because we are publicly listed on Euronext and on the Nasdaq, it creates another complication, which is that if we were only on the Nasdaq, once you have the data, you can raise immediately.
Yeah.
Because we're on Euronext doesn't authorize that. Euronext force the company to let it trade one day, and then the next day you can raise. So what happened in our case, we used that day where we couldn't do a fundraising. We couldn't speak about fundraising, but we talked about the data. Yeah. But again, we felt investors, we felt the enthusiasm for the data. So at the end of the day on the Nasdaq, we said we're going, and we had a board meeting to say, given what we are hearing about this high interest and the stock price reaction, instead of raising 200, we're going to go to 400. So we communicated to the bank, let's go for 400. So the banks went out to all investors and say,
that has to be super quick.
It was very super quick. It was right after the Nasdaq was closed.
Yeah.
They went to, we're looking for 400 million. And then the wave of demand was way over 400 million. It was actually 3.5 billion in demand. Yeah. So
that's not it's not oversubscribed. It's like massively over.
It was and that's why we eventually. So we spend more time. So literally
select the investors,
selecting the investor, and then allocating a share of what they wanted, because we could not offer to what they wanted. So that process took actually my team, my CFO and the head of investor relations, until 2:00 in the morning with the bankers, to do the allocate. But it was very important, because what you want to have funds that are long term. Yeah. Because what you don't want is
zero and
that's right. Like Baker Brothers and all these funds who want to stick around. They're not going to go away in 2 or 3 months.
So you got them.
Yeah, we got them. Yeah.
And then in terms of dilution for the retail investors, how does that work actually?
Well, the dilution, because the stock price had increased so much, the dilution was around 18%.
Okay, but so with such an increase is really Okay, yeah. Okay, now that's it's really. And I guess now I heard also, I think from an interview you did this morning, that you are basically financed until the end of the
Q4 27,
which is basically until the
launch in the US.
The launching even. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
we'll need to do another raise to carry.
Either raise or exit, I guess you are.
Or exit, yeah. And we may get some money if we license out the rights outside of the US.
Yeah.
We may get also some nice
background. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of heard. I mean, I have to ask you also kind of what's next. I mean, obviously you have all the options. You keep all the options, I guess, open.
Well, again, you don't control what Big Pharma is going to do, right? So what you do is you focus on the key markets. 70% of the IBD market is in the US. So we are getting ready. We're going to hire a CCO, Chief Commercial Officer, probably early next year. We'll build up its infrastructure, the commercial infrastructure, in the second half of next year, and we'll see into 27.
Okay, so you really go ahead as if you launch yourself, and then
we'll see what
happens. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because you never know. Yeah, you never know what the companies are going to do. So, and plus now with our market cap, which is so anyway, it eliminates a number of companies anyway, right?
Yeah. I was curious on like, of course you don't control the pharma, but I was curious on like, what is your personal preference in terms of like you wanna like build it for the next 5-10 years, and you would be ready to build a commercial organization, or you have a different mindset of like whatever passing on, or what? Like, do you have a personal preference?
Well, I think as a CEO, what you want is to have the drive to get it to the finish line. So you need to keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great drug.
Yeah.
I mean, the feedback we give with the market research we did in the US after the data, the doctors essentially said you're going to become the next standard of care.
Wow.
So with 20% market share in the future,
It must be super exciting for you personally. Like,
it's a
dream scenario. Like,
it's exactly. So it's beyond the imagination.
I mean, and you have seen quite a lot. I mean, at Ipsen and everything, you have seen a lot. But
this is exceptional for sure.
Okay. No. Yeah. And I mean, the other question I had was more on the investor side, especially let's say Sophie Nova, but I guess they are looking for the best return as well. And if you prepare for commercial, that's where they can do return. And I guess the Baker brothers in the long term, they're also looking for the biggest value creation.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, when you have a good drug, that's the key, right?
Yeah. That's good. I talked to Verona.
Yeah.
Lich, to Chris, actually the chief commercial.
Yes.
Was very good, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how long you will stay, but and Lich, I talked to him, I think was less than 2 months. And then $10 billion exit. And they're also basically single drug, but like doing super well.
Yeah, it's a great drug.
They executed super.
Yeah, they were.
We talked actually, and actually it reminded me a bit of our conversation. When I talked to you, one thing that fascinated me was like wow, okay. Like Marc, I could feel, I don't know why, but I could feel you are really good at executing. Like,
no.
I remember you made a comment of like, clinical trials is not just finding the hero, it's about like really like what do you do on the site, on like really executing. And I rarely hear this from biotech CEOs, like at this level of like, clarity. And the Verona was really the same also, like we don't care about Europe, we don't care about ex-rights, just only US, super targeted, exactly the centers, only one drug, no pipeline.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what, Activia was our basically CRO for the execution of the phase 3. And this is what they told me. They said there are a number of companies where the CEOs delegate to the head of clinical operation these meetings, this basically, management of the trial. And I was there in every meeting, yes. And we brought the head of the US CRO business at Akivia. So we had a really senior.
Okay, well,
because
really hands-on, like
because these studies are very hard to do. Right, there are problems. Literally every day, so you need to resolve them one by one. It's a very grinding. But then you need to have a good team also.
And also on the patient recruitment, do you also like hands-on, or this is really Akivia doing it?
Well, the patient recruitment, it's mostly obviously Akivia. But what we did is we had, for example, medical service liaisons, especially in the beginning, because we had such a new mechanism of action that could create some fear for the patient, because it was really unlike anything else. And so the MSLs were on site, tried to educate the doctors, the nurses.
So it's really active.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
How much do you think this execution on the clinical made a difference in the final result versus the drug itself?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, the drug is a good drug. There is no doubt. But what was, I think, really, I think is spectacular in this study is when you look at the history of the phase 3s done by Big Pharma, our study was the lowest placebo rate ever achieved. And the lowest placebo rate achieved ever in phase 3. Yeah, in phase 3. So that's the ultimate judgment of clinical execution. And that's what the KOLs told us. And the investors too. Because they said it's not only the fact that the data is good, but it reassured the the medical community that the way this study was run was very well run.
And I guess at the end, your delta effect
was impressive. Yeah.
So I remember most of the allergy companies like DBV, where the placebo was like so high and then outperforming the actual drug. Like I guess maybe it's on the study, partly on the study as well. Of like, I guess every indication all different, but it's good too.
Yeah, but over time, if you look at irrespective of therapeutic areas, when you look at meta-analysis, placebo rates, regardless of therapeutic areas, in the last 20 to 30 years, it keeps rising.
What's the average kind of?
Well, it depends again by therapeutic areas, but the challenge has been it keeps rising.
In inflammatory, what's kind of typical?
Well, in inflammatory, the recent studies have been between 10 and 20%.
And you were at 4.
Wow.
Okay, that's a big multiple. Like it's
That's
And I guess I'm curious on this topic, but I guess it's a bit a tangent, but I guess you have some all the CNS now or pain, where I guess the placebo can be way stronger when it's more subjective.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And
that's actually the issue when you have more PRO type of measurements. For example, in Alzheimer, the sheer fact that you are following the patient in a clinical trial, regardless of the drug you get, the patient feel better because they haven't been taken care as well, before. So actually, the placebo goes up because they feel better, right?
So that even in oncology, if you don't have a placebo, I guess it's similar effect as well.
Yeah, but the challenge is
very hard. But it's criminal, but still, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I read once about even you have some complete response on.
It depends also because placebo sometimes is nothing, but sometimes placebo can be, an old sort of standard of care type of things, which is 30 years old, which is called placebo. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a bit of a tangent, but it's true. Just one thing on the valuation which is quite crazy is when you're still chairman of Ipsen, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're basically, not the same valuation, but getting closer. I think it's
10 billion.
And you, $12 billion.
And we're 7.
And you're at $8 billion. And
But so, it's crazy. Well, it is the market dictates. No, but I think what the market is saying is this drug has a potential to be a multi-billion-dollar drug.
Yeah.
So it's not a blockbuster. So it's not only a blockbuster or 1 billion plus, but it could be it's like people who say mega blockbuster. So maybe 3 plus, 4 plus.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah, actually, I wanted to mention, but I'm not asking too much about the mechanism of action and the epidemiology and the occurrence and the competition, because we talked quite in detail in the first episode, and I listened to it again this morning, and I think it was very clear, and I don't think it changed that much.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's more the clinic. So that's why I wanted to focus, also for the listeners, I wanted to focus more on what was new. And I found you were so clear on certain things. It's amazing to listen back and not a lot of things you said 2 years later, basically. You just executed exactly what you said. It's pretty
yeah. You do what you say and you say what you do. So that's my sort of a mantra. So
not everyone does that.
I know.
Other people overpromise, underdeliver.
Yeah.
I think you are more underpromising a bit and over-delivering.
Again, those study lengths. It took us time to recruit the patients, so we got really pressure on that. But we said part of the success of this study will be if we have the fair allocation between what we call bio-naive or first-line treatment versus more advanced patient.
Yeah.
And I think what was wonderful is we kept 50-50, which ultimately helped so much, for the results.
Wow. Curious on this, do what you say, how much is it something that you have kind of innately in you? How much is it like cultivated and like?
I think it's part of. I mean, of course, there is both, but I think it's part of how I am. I tend to be straight. Yeah. And I think it's part of the trust, right? If I think if you overpromise constantly, it can work in the short term, but then it backfires later. So,
did you have some like experiences or like learnings that made you realize this? Like, say at Ipsen or when you were a CEO, like.
Well, when you see some when you see some CEOs what they have done, sometimes they tend to overpromise and
But you yourself, you had like some of.
No, well, what I've seen myself is I've done some mistakes, but these were mistakes more example in execution, like the second study at CinCor didn't materialize as well as the first one. The first one was much more important, so the failure was, let's say, less impactful. But the example there was we were getting a lot of pressure from the investors to finish the study.
Yeah.
And what we did, and what was my mistake was, I probably pushed too much the team, and then the team with the CRO went to centers where the patients were there, but not of good quality, and they were not compliant actually with the protocol. And then the study blew up. So these are examples where it's that's why you need a bit of conservatism in your assumption, because if you are too aggressive, you may end up either disappointing or pushing your team or your providers to do things that are not good, right?
Do you think like let's say a biotech founder, CEO who is listening, who is, let's say, first time founder, 30 to 40 years old, do you think he can learn it by listening to you and believing you, or do you think he will learn it only by doing a mistake?
I think we all learn first by mistakes, for sure. Especially if you are a highly confident person, which some founders are.
Douche froide, as we say in French.
Culture. Yeah, but it's a human nature, right? You learn more by doing your own mistakes. You get slapped on both sides. Then you remember it and say, I'm not going to do it again.
Thanks, sir. Excellent. Maybe a last one on Abivax before we stop. And I think actually we didn't talk too much about it the last episode. I find we spend a bit of time on the story of the company itself, because I think like before it became Abivax, the story of the drug in the company is really insane.
Yes.
With whatever I think was Truffle and Puliti founding it, and there was two different companies and then merging, and then could you talk a bit just in like kind of the high level of what were from the start to?
Sure. So initially, what happened? It was a scientist in Montpellier, in the south of France, working for CNRS, which is a sort of a French NIH, who wanted to develop really an antiviral against HIV. And but the problem is that he was not able to, do the configuration of the molecule, and he had to go to Institut Curie in Paris to help with basically the chemistry of the compounds. So essentially, in 2009, it was Institut Curie and the CNRS and this French researcher who basically were at the inception of the drug. And then Philippe Pouletti from Truffle was very excited about the potential, because it was a new mechanism of action to fund it, and that's how it started. Then so that was 2009, and that's why, by the way, the composition of matter, protection started actually in 2009, because it was the first experiment.
Okay.
Then,
but that impacts you on the IP or not?
Yeah, well, it does on composition of matter exclusivity, but we are lucky because we have use patent, since the move from HIV to IBD was not an obvious one. That's clear. So the protection on use patent is very strong.
Okay.
But if we are back, the company then Abivax was called at the time Spikos, was the name of the company. So for 4 years, 5 years, it did, drug development in HIV. But then when the phase 2 in HIV results were known, it was found that it didn't really replicate, the idea was to try to prevent the replication of the virus.
Yeah.
And it didn't work that well. But it was very safe. So at that time, in 2014, Therapeutics said, well, this didn't work in HIV. I have a couple of companies that have cash, but they have nothing, and let's merge everything. So Abivax was created actually in
did a SPAC before the SPAC existed.
Yeah, exactly, a SPAC. Yeah, it was kind of a SPAC, a merger of 3 different companies. That was in 2015, and then what really changed the trajectory is that by doing some more functional assay, obefazimod was found to be a booster of microRNA 124. And microRNA 124 is present in immune cells, and it has a big function actually in the body because it regulates actually the inflammation. So when it sees a dysregulated pathway, it comes and it says, through STAT3, IR6 pathway, and also macrophages, it says, limit the expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines. And that's how the drug worked. So in 15, when that was done, and there was a...
Done in a phase 1 or what was it?
Yeah, well, actually, they went straight in phase 2A because they had all the data on safety from HIV. A professor of gastroenterology, very well known, Séverine Vermeer, in Leuven, in Belgium, said, let's go full blast because the microRNA 184 is done regulated in UC patients.
Yeah.
So she said, let's go, and phase 2A was great. And then the 2B, which turned out to be positive. 2B was conducted between 19 and 21 and was positive again.
Yeah, okay. But then they still struggle to raise the money to do the phase 3.
Right.
And that's when mostly Sofinova.
It was Sofinova, we decided to bring US investors to recapitalize the company.
And to change the management.
Change the governance.
And you were supposed to be chairman.
Yeah.
One asked you, and then you looked. And then you looked at the data, and I think it was so amazing that you decided to be CEO.
Right. I said, the execution of it's very hard for a small biotech to do from phase 2 to phase 3, right? Especially of this magnitude.
You had a good gut feeling.
Yes. Well, it's partly the experience of, multiple experiments before, right? So,
when you said that,
what?
When you said that, I looked at it. I was chairman. I looked at the data. Then I went to see you. I was like, okay, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
And gut feeling.
Yeah, sure.
But I was.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it's a good sign.
It's a good sign. Yeah.
I talked to Vienna Lantala, from biotech.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I had lunch with him and we recorded an episode. Same thing with a new company he just joined. So fair journey. Doesn't matter. But he became chairman like 1 year ago. And then chairman, and at some point, okay, it looks amazing. Probably a good fit to be CEO, and now you're just CEO. I think it's a very good, pretty good sign, I think. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it was.
Especially, even in your case, you did already, you were CEO of Ipsen, 2 biotechs, 2 exits. For you to you had a lot of options and everything. So for you to really go back into execution, I was like, wow, okay, no.
Yeah, there must have been something, right?
So that's something. Okay. Talking about stats and stats videos or the different stats, we had to mention it. I don't know if Christophe Bourdon, if he mentioned it or if he talked to you. He was on the show and he mentioned you as one of his biotech mentors. It's pretty cool. And obviously, with Leo Pharma, we talked a lot about, I think it's a Stat 6 program.
Yeah.
I have a stat. And we talked a lot about INI and immunology, but you guys are basically in a similar space. Maybe 2 questions, but the first question more about the INI space, how do you look at it? How hot is it? What's your gut feeling?
Well, I is certainly one of the hot area of research, primarily because it seems that a bit like oncology, there is a big unmet medical need. There are multiple conditions where our body gets out of control, right?
Yeah.
And there needs to be solutions. So if you take ulcerative colitis, this is real world data, which we presented at ECOS, the big European Congress a few months ago.
Yeah.
We showed in the US, this is US data, so claims data from IQVIA, only 5% of patients are on the same drug after 3 years of treatment. Only 5%. So,
Low, yeah.
so all these drugs, anti-TNF, IL-23s, NTVO, all these things, for different reasons, patients don't stay on drugs for a long time. So this is where we think obefazimod could have a play, because since its tolerability seems to be very good, only you have headaches the first week of treatment. Actually, the last 3 days, you take paracetamol, Tylenol, and you're okay. And then after that, you have essentially very little side effects on the drug. Well, while the others, you have opportunistic infections. You see some malignancies, like hematological malignancies. Yeah, you see.
Okay, so really severe.
Yeah, over time.
Okay, well.
Yeah, so I think that's why the doctors currently have to monitor these drugs, and in the end, patients drop out. So that's why I&I remains a hot area, and we see it goes beyond gastroenteritis.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new indications where.
But I guess I&I is also, it's quite tricky in a way, because most of it is chronic.
Yes.
Long-term chronic.
Very expensive studies.
Expensive studies, usually quite expensive drugs as well. Most of them are like injectable or biologicals, or subcutaneous.
Yeah.
But also, we know the immune system, but we also don't know it that well.
Yeah, sure. So there is some risk,
and it's very sensitive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So it's more high risk, high reward for sure.
Yeah. But you still think it's like you should actually ask Christophe how much is a grounded value potential and medical need, and how much on top is a bit of hype and overexcitement. And he said there is a bit of overexcitement at the moment, probably, but there's definitely a bit what you say, a very solid foundation, super high unmet medical need, peaks or expected peak sales that are really there. Already some drugs that are really high sales as well.
There is indeed the fact that since there have been a very large transaction in I&I, investors tend to extrapolate and think that if you get a good I&I drug,
the next checkpoint inhibitor,
there's a reasonable probability that the company may get bought at a very nice valuation. So.
Do you think because the GLP-1s and obesity and also it's a bit less in I&I?
I don't think so, because again, if you look at I&I, there's still a big unmet medical needs.
I'm talking more about the opportunistic investors who go more about the trends.
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
But maybe it's not such a bad thing at the end.
Well, again, I can tell you in July we were not short of finding investors. So, it's
a good sign. Yeah, it's a good. Actually, what do you think about Mounjaro or GLP-1 becoming the best-selling drug ever, bypassing Keytruda over the quarter?
These drugs, they are. What they do is really impressive, right? Because they reduce on a number of biological markers. You really lower the risk of serious, cardiac problems, and you feel also much better as a patient. I think still obviously the area, and I'm not a specialist of a GLP-1, so please bear with me. I think part of the challenge is the body mass issue, the muscle losing mass, and also with
when you stop and then you're locked in. Once you stop, you get everything.
And that's right. Yeah, you go back, and then the other thing also that has
it's a very expensive subscription.
And also what you see is for people who take a GLP-1, their face start to also to take a hit
because of the face muscles.
Yeah, well, and you lose fat too, and therefore
That's why
it has
a lot of Silicon Valley people that look like vampires.
And that's why some actually are now taking like fillers, Botox, and yeah. I was in a recent industry meeting, and this was part of the conversation of some of the people who are on the GLP-1. They said, we feel much better, but our face looks like so we need some help.
You fix one problem, then you fix the other one, and then and you end up with a big bill.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I guess some of these people have quite a lot of money as well. Oh, okay, wow. So, okay, I didn't see it that way. Yeah. That makes quite sense. Yeah. Okay. I have a last one, a bit industry one. I mean, we could. The last one is more on the French biotech.
Yes.
It's the ecosystem, because I remember. I think even 1 year ago, there was this whole discussion in France. Was like I think it was the ex-BCG was like, okay, we don't have any billion-dollar biotechs in France. Like, we are underperforming compared to everyone else, which is factually not completely false. I did 1 year ago. And now, I just had Laurent from Nanobiotix on the show, $1 billion. Medincell.
Yeah, also.
And you guys, $8 billion, which is crazy. Like, how, I don't know how, what do you think? How you look at it? Like,
Well, I think what we have said about France in general, the technology tended to be a good technology, but the issue is a scale up. So in order to be a successful, biotech, you need to find the funds, to spend, 100 plus, 200, $300 million. And this has been extremely difficult in the past. And also, there was no example of success. So this year we got 3 in a row, which is obviously a wonderful position.
It shows also that, I mean, there's a bit of it's science. There's a bit of a luck as well.
Of course, there is luck.
But there's also a persistence factor of like,
invest
on the long term, and at some point it pays off.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Nanobiotix was founded over 20 years ago. Medincell, I don't know, but I think it's also quite old.
Yeah.
And what you said about Abivax, I mean, it started.
But it's actually, for the anecdote, our research office in Montpellier is next to Medincell. So we are neighbors.
I have to get Christophe on the show.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
You know him what?
Yeah, well, I know him.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. And I think it's worth a trip to Montpellier.
Oh yeah, so I'm sure. Less of wine too. She's biotech, by the way, right? Only biotech.
Depends how much you engineer it. Only biotech. Yeah. No, that's cool, and I think I'm well. I mean, obviously I'm French as well, but I'm very happy. I mean, not just France versus the other, but just it's very good to see like that there's some good news.
Yeah.
Examples at work. I mean, there was some. I think. I mean, if we talk a bit, but like TBV at some point they were in the $2 billion market cap or something, but then the trial,
but the phase 3 failed. Yeah,
failed. I think Selectis went pretty high as well, but also
failed.
Failed or was much more complicated than expected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And still, Innate also.
Innate has been
Adosia as well.
Yeah,
Adosia they could have gone. I think very high was if they
sure
diabetes obesity, but no, it's good. It's good to see. It's and I'm curious on the ecosystem as well because at the end Abivax you had a Paris office, but you rapidly you still live in Boston, I think, right?
Yeah, partly, yes.
And then a lot of the team is also based in Boston, right?
Yeah, or even some on the West Coast. So
and why it's because of the focus on the US market, but
well, it's also to find the right experience, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, when I joined Abivax, I brought 3 people who were with me at CinCor. Yeah, and they're all based in Boston. Yeah.
you couldn't find the same people in France or Europe.
I mean, there may be some people, but again, no, it's hard to it's hard to find.
Makes sense.
And plus, when you know them, you trust them, it's much more simple, right?
But with Ipsen, you must have a really good network also in France. Like,
yes, we did, yeah. Yeah, but it was bigger. It's so this
different setup.
it's a set.
We're curious about this one, like about the transition. If you can talk, because I think quite a few people are like in pharma and then they move to biotech. What I heard is like some on like maybe middle management. It's different, but maybe a bit less different. But some on more on the C-level. Maybe it's, I don't know if it's even more different, but it's quite different. I guess you know him, Fabrice Chouaki from Pharma.
Yeah.
And he said it was quite different. And especially he went like from like really Novartis to flagship and running a startup from scratch.
A small company,
which is like kind of big jump. But then I heard just recently, kind of a bit more off the record, what happened at Galapagos with Paul Stoffel joining. And what I heard is that he was so used that like massive J&J organization that he arrived there and he needed to take decisions and quick and just was not a fit at all. Like, did you have these challenges when you went from like, Sure to...
Yeah, sure. But this is where, the importance of the team is, having good people around you, because that's de-risks this. And then you need to have the humility. I think part of, the shift from being a CEO of a big pharma or mid pharma to becoming a CEO of a small biotech is, things change. You don't have 25 people around you to do something. So you have to participate to the work.
To get your hands a bit more dirty.
Yeah, but again, the value of that is you're very close to the action, so you see things, right? And you see where things can go wrong. But also, I think what you can, on the flip side, what you can, the good thing is at big pharma, you learn to delegate, right? Because you have so in small biotech, you need to find really good people around you. Because ultimately, the success of Abivax, it's not me. I'm only the chief of the orchestra. I don't play the music. The people who play the music are the people around me.
But you still have quite a hands-on. I mean, you said
Yeah, because you can't, operate without being on top. But.
And I guess you don't have the luxury of having redundancy as if you have maybe in pharma where you can, hire a bit more people and delegate more.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Abivax, this is what I said in the, forum just a few minutes ago. We had not enough cash to do everything. So we placed all our bets on our phase 3 program.
That's all in.
And then we said the Crohn's program we're going to, to delay. Combination therapy we're going to delay.
Okay.
Follow on we're going to delay. And these are hard choices to do because the temptation is also for diversification. You want to. But again, my learning is focus and quality, they come together, right?
I like that. Yeah. It's very, And I know apply it a bit on the like more startup level. I mean, the whole digital startup, it's a lot about focus and prioritization. And it's also a lesson I learned. I tried always to do way too many things. And now,
we do well a few things.
One podcast, I do it well. And then monetize it, and then we'll see.
I think there is a lot of too, and then
and I said,
and then you can expand.
But I need to say no to
other
things.
Yeah,
that's the hard part.
Yeah, it's very hard because it's tempting.
I had one thing that I love. It's Johnny Ive, the designer from Apple. Steve Jobs. And he said, focus is not just about saying no. Focus is saying no about something that you're very excited about. And I find it pretty good. Because it's easy to say no to something that looks... But when you have two phase 3 or phase 2, whatever, it's a big opportunity. And then if you say no,
it's much harder.
But that's where also you really make the focus work.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and you see like Apple, I mean,
It's amazing.
$4 trillion company and they have whatever, 5-6 products.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
And they have unlimited cash. The amount of no focus. Insane. But yeah. Yeah. I want to finish with a quick fire. So more like quick questions, quick answers.
Sure.
What is actually? Let's start with this one. One of your biotech mentors or heroes.
One of the biotech mentors of mine.
Yeah.
Well, I think actually it was earlier in my career. I think Kevin Scher was, the CEO of Amgen. He had a lot of grit, and he said focus.
Yeah.
And win. So
he founded it, or
no, he didn't found. He was the CEO between 2000, I think 2000 and 2010, or.
But he grew it a lot.
Yeah, he grew it a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And I heard Christophe that you hired Christophe at Amgen. Like,
yes.
Small world.
Yeah, Christophe was a great guy. He's a great guy. He's very talented. So.
That's good. It's good what he's. Leo Pharma. I mean, for people listening, they can listen to the episode. I really enjoyed it. It was in Copenhagen at the amazing. It was really cool. What is the most difficult decision you had to make since joining Abivax?
I think separation of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's always a difficult one because there are people who are very good at a certain stage of the company, but for the next stage, they just don't have the skill set, even though they think they have, and that's the that's the hard part. So to explain that, they've done a great job for until now, but the task is the complexity is very different now, and we cannot fail because otherwise we.
How much is it subjective versus objective?
Well, I think it needs to be both, right? Because it needs to be fact-based. Because I try to be fact-based. If you don't have the right skill set, if you start to make multiple mistakes, in your job because it's stretching you, there is a problem. And then there could be also cases where it's more. I think what you're referring to is the ability to work with others, person that has a character which is, not friendly to teamwork. That could be another source of separation. So these are, again, very hard decisions because we're all human beings. No one is perfect, including myself.
Yeah.
But at some point you have to. So I give you an example. The head of clinical operations.
Yeah.
I had to separate because over time I saw the study was going nowhere. But it was not only that the study wasn't going nowhere; it's the explanations that were given to me were pretty poor, and showed that the person did not fully understand what was going on. So,
and this didn't delay you in the.
Well, it created some delay, but I was able to catch it, at a relatively early stage with my CMO.
But at the end, that's your responsibility, right?
Yes.
And that's your job, like.
Yeah, that's the job.
Yeah. And did you like?
But what you don't want is to have also a company where everybody's interchangeable, right? So because that's a terrible,
culture.
A terrible culture where you throw people, one after the other, and part of what we do, we are going to do mistakes. But there are some key jobs, I think, where if the person is not going to cut it, you just have to, call it the end, and help the people find something else, which is
exactly. I was about to say I had a few cases in my companies as well, but I realized that if you're transparent with a person and you help the person move on, then it's not because some people I think tell you we need someone else, but it's just an excuse to fire the person.
Right.
But if you actually explain and you help, then you actually mean it. It's actually
yeah. And this is where HR is very important, and I am very lucky that my head of HR is a fantastic lady, and she's a very constructive in helping people, increase the skill set, or finding other alternative outside.
That's super important, I guess. That makes me think that I've met a few companies in Europe, and one thing that struck me in most of them that were quite successful, the CEO was like super focused on HR and company culture, especially when I was a founder. And it seemed to be like quite a correlation.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, the last presentation we did in our all staff meeting, the last slide we had of HR presented, here are the value, here are the behaviors we like to reward, here are the things to watch. Yeah, this is part of, and especially when you grow, you add more people, right? With different cultures, different companies. Everybody thinks, this is a way we did it at our company. And that doesn't work when you are, in a new entity. So,
and how much is it important for you to spend time on HR? Like even simple things of connecting with every employee.
That's to me this is a more difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
I have direct contacts when it's related, for example, to clinical operation. So sometimes I'm in the field with the CRA or but there are some people unfortunately I'm not as close to.
Yeah. Provocative, but will you retire after Abivax?
Yes. I will retire from CEO, not from chairman. From chair. I work as a chairman.
Two last one. When will the biotech winter end?
It's a hard one. I think there is signs.
It didn't affect you too much, but
there are signs of
the San Diego winter.
There are signs of blue sky. There are things that obviously the Trump administration, interest rate, what they do is obviously you cannot control. But I think in general it has been a very hard period for biotech. But from out the period, the best are going to come out. So yeah.
Last one advice for the 40 years old Marc.
Well, do what you love.
Good one. Thanks, Marc.
Amazing. Yeah, super good. Thank you.
I'm impressed by Marc's execution, drive, clarity, humility, while being super patient-driven. I'm also impressed by where Abivax is now and how much potential there's still lying ahead. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the like, follow, or review button. Any of these actions will help a lot more people discover the podcast. If you would like to support us even further, you can make a donation by clicking on the link in the description below. If you want to see similar videos, please feel free to check out our channel where we have many more. I would also be curious to hear what you think. So if you could leave me a comment wherever you are or shoot me an email at philip@flot.bio. That's philip@flot.bio. All right. Thanks for staying to the end and see you in the next episode.